So here's a great question. I talk a lot about cold calling being the most effective way to make connections with sellers of multifamily commercial properties, land, basically off market commercial multifamily properties, development land, even companies, businesses that you want to sell. The most effective way to reach those people and to connect with them is cold calling versus sending a letter or postcard or whatever. You can get the list of these people the same way that you get for residential, use the same marketing techniques to kind of dig them up. But at the end of the day, you want to be calling these owners and connecting with them directly and developing a relationship. So somebody, I've said that, and I have it out there in a lot of videos, a lot of different medium that I talk about that. And somebody finally asked, well, what do you say to them? Do you have a script that you developed over the years? So I've been in the business for over 25 years now. And in my career, in my business, I'm a salesman. That's what I do. I sell. I'm a developer. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a equity capital guy. I do a number of things. I buy companies. I develop real estate. I buy real estate. But at the end of the day, I'm a salesman, right? I have to sell the projects. I have to sell the owners. I have to sell the buyers. I have to sell the lenders. Everything I do all day long, I have to sell my team members, my clients, my customers, my partners, trade partners, vendors, subcontractors. I'm selling all day long, every day. And I've known that about myself, and I've developed myself as a salesman over the years. And I do have scripts that I've developed and used over the years, but I look at scripts as conversation. So a script, a lot of people think a script is this sales trick or gimmick or whatever. A script is simply a dialogue, a conversation that is put into a format and is used over and over and over. That's really all a script is at the end of the day, whether it's a script in terms of dealing with a cold calling a customer or a property owner or somebody like that that you don't know. So anyways, what I want to do is give you the script real quick that I've used over the years and I've developed. It's a conversational script with a commercial or multifamily property owner or a business owner that owns a company. It's very simple. I call up and say, hey, this is Greg Dickerson. I'm an investor and developer. I'm looking for multifamily properties, apartment buildings. I was wondering if you were interested in selling your building, your property, your company, whatever it is. This is Greg Dickerson. I'm an investor. I am looking to purchase some commercial multifamily buildings and properties. I was wondering if you would be interested in selling your property. Now, if they say yes, then I go into the fact finding questions. If they say no, I'm going to deal with the no first. If they say no, I'm not interested, I say, well, hey, I appreciate you taking my call. Do you know anybody else that would be interested in selling, or anybody else that has any property that they would like to sell? And if they say yes, then I go into the fact finding. If they say no, then I say, hey, I really appreciate you taking a few minutes to talk to me today. Would you mind if I followed up with you from time to time in case you do decide to sell? I really like your property, and I would really love to talk to you about that when the time comes. Everybody sells sooner or later. And this isn't the script, but I'm just telling you, everybody sells sooner or later. So you want to ask permission to stay in touch with them. So it's very simple. No, I'm not interested. I don't want to sell. Never going to sell. Ain't going to sell. Not in your lifetime. Not in my lifetime. I've heard that. Then you say, hey, thank you. I appreciate your time. Do you know anybody else that has a property that they would like to sell? They're going to either say, oh, yeah, as a matter of fact, or they're going to say, nope, sure don't. Say, hey, great. I really appreciate your time. Would you mind if I followed up with you from time to time, just in case you do decide to sell one day? And then that's either a yes or no. Thank you. Have a great day. If they say yes, then you go into the fact finding conversation. You ask them all the questions about the property. How long have you had it? What's what does the tenant mix look like? How many units is it if you don't know? What do the bedroom mix look like? Whatever it is, you just start asking the technical questions about the property to do your fact finding mission about the property. How old is it? What kind of condition is it in? What's the income look like? Operating expenses? You get into all the nuances of the property. And then one of the last things that you want to ask at the end of that conversation is there anything else that I didn't ask you or forgot to ask about the property? And then you listen and you let them tell you about the property. Maybe they forgot something and that question will trigger something. Then once you're done learning about the property, then you say, man, that's great. So how did you get the property? How did you find it? How did you buy it? So you start asking them questions, how they got control of the property, how they came to own the property. Then you start asking questions about them and their history and their family, and you get to know them a little bit better. And this is this could be a 20, 30-minute conversation, but you want to basically listen, ask questions, get them talking. And then one of the last things you're going to do at the end of all that, once you've gathered information about the property, you've learned a little bit about them, and you say, well, look, let me ask you how much, this is a yes, if they've said yes, say, well, let me ask you, how much would you need to sell the property for? So you want to ask them that question. You don't want to say how much are you selling, because they're not, you called them. You don't want to ask them how much they want, because they don't, you called them. You want to ask them, how much do you need to get for the property if you were to sell it? How much do you need to get out of the property if you were to sell it? That's an easy question to ask. It's not confrontational. It doesn't, and then they're going to tell you or they're not. They might say, well, you called me, you tell me. Say, well, based on my research and everything you've told me, I think the property is going to trade between this and this, whatever, 1 million and 3 million, or 1 million and 2 million, or 3 million and 5 million, whatever it is. You give them a little range. That way you can qualify whether or not they are a seller and a realistic seller. So you give them a range and say, of course, I'd have to inspect the property and all this and that, and if everything you told me holds up, but here's where the market is right now for properties like yours. And then you listen and you hear what they have to say, and then you're going to find out whether you have a seller or not. If you got a seller, then you move to the next step and you meet them, view the property, get your offer together, get it under contract. If they're like, oh no, that's way too low, it's worth 10 times that, and you know it's not, then you have an unrealistic seller, and you say, listen, I understand, I appreciate your time. Would it be okay if I follow up with you from time to time? And, of course, at the end of that, do you know anybody else that has property for sale, or anybody else that's selling a property? So at the end of the day, you always want to end with those three things. Number one, is there anything else that I didn't ask you or forgot to ask you about, yourself or the property, your situation or the property? Do you know anybody else that has a property that they would like to sell? And would you mind if I follow up with you from time to time? So you always want to end with those three things. That's basically the script that I've developed for cold calling people, no matter what it is, whether it's a commercial property, multifamily property, whether I want to buy their company, almost anything, commercial, residential, it works for any kind of property. I just simply tell them my name. Hey, this is Greg. I'm an investor, developer, calling about your property, your land. Are you interested in selling? You keep it short, you keep it simple. Yes, great. No? Well, do you know anybody else that has a property that they would like to sell? Or do you have any other property? So you always want to ask that question at the end of the day. So I hope that's helpful. The residential single family home script is a little bit different depending on what's going on there, but this works all day long for multifamily. I've used it for years. It's a great way to break the ice, and it's conversational. You're having a conversation, you're fact finding, you're seeking to understand who they are, where they come from, how they do business. You can learn a lot by listening and asking questions. That's how you get to know people. That's how you build rapport. Selling is serving. Selling is listening. Selling is asking questions.